fate and not a hell go mash up people start and people them sell big gun. On the tree market man, big gun. On them a tree the cat man, big gun. On the tree the peanut man, big gun. On them a tree the dirt man, big gun. On them a tree the sun man, big gun. On them a tree policeman, big gun.
Boom! I mean, I say a couple to the flex they represent for Wayne Global TV. So I say, you know the code in the Wayne Global TV is what fully blessed on the 90 days. So I say, yeah man, to the fullest. Yeah man, make sure them log in to Wayne Global TV. So I say, check it out. So I say, one cup of flex. So I say, Wayne Global. When you watch you know, feel my plan up and not try if you put them on it and we head. But man, I live too long, them want Wayne Global fitted. To him juggle so smooth that them want him life for dread. I chew the bank, I like the break, but we ain't all about the bread. We open up in the ears and no listen when we said, cause we lyrics them so smooth like the linen on the bed. Them one with a fall, we live in bandage, I must say true, we make this them. We ain't Global TV, we are 90, hey. And 90, who Jaja bless, say no man can curse. Give it the Range Rover, who no drive years. Boom! We in Global TV to the fullest one cup of excellence, see me?
This is Global TV election results coverage. This is Global TV election results coverage. This is Global TV election results coverage.
Good evening, and welcome to Global TV election coverage at Drive Time London. We have been away from Drive Time London for most of this week because the election has been hard and pulling us and dragging us all over the place. But the Electoral Commission of Jamaica has published what is their final numbers. But does it make it betterer for you? Or the numbers published make it worser confusing for you? Or has that alleviated or cleared up some of your confusion? Good evening, and welcome to Global Television. Thank you all for joining us. Good evening to those on the X, those on Twitch, on Facebook, and on YouTube. Good evening and welcome. Good evening. Thank you all for joining us. Good evening to all my moderators. Good evening to all my family members. Good evening to the community of parity. Good evening to all my subscribers and viewers and supporters. Good evening. Thank you all. Thank you all for joining us. Good evening, Anthony. Good evening. How are you? Good evening. David Jervis, good evening and welcome. JamaicanTV.com, good evening and welcome. JP Lou, good evening and welcome. Natalia Freeman, good evening and welcome. P. Richards, good evening and welcome. John Pugh, good evening and welcome. Pamela McNeil, good evening and welcome. Veteran, Wagwan, big up Wagwan. Sunshine, good evening and welcome. Good evening, thank you. Cousin Jamie, Beat and Teach, Sim, good evening and welcome. How are you all doing? Good evening. Abena, good evening and welcome. Lilith Lockerbie, good evening. Sharon Powell, good evening and welcome. JP, good evening. Beat and Teach Wagwan, good evening and welcome. Good evening. Thank you all for joining us this evening. DI Easy Jerk World, welcome, bro. Good evening and welcome. Cousin Myrna, good evening. How are you? Good evening. Elga Fletcher, good evening. Rena, good evening. Deborah Cohen, good evening. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Does the numbers published by the Electoral Commission makes it any more clearer for you, Marbury Lloyd? Does it make it any more clearer for you? And has a party had a clear victory? Angela Green. And is any party, Millicent Jones, conceding? And is there any party claiming the victory? What is the status of this election in your mind? And do you believe in the figures of the election? And do you have trust and confidence in the integrity of the director of your elections? Because boy, I never see one confusion run on, one, for so long, and two, look like it's never gonna clear up. Is this confusion of the local government election, is the post-mortem declaration, Oliver Rodney, of this local government election will take us right into the general election for us to have a solution and where the country went with their decision on Monday. Shauna Smith, good evening and welcome. But I don't know for any of you. I am still left rather confused by the publication of the Electoral Commission. Okay. Just up at top, that's what I say. Final count complete for all electoral divisions. JLP won 7 parishes. The People's National Party won 5 parishes. Kingston and St. Andrew tie with 2020 each. Let us stop right there. Kingston and St. Andrew tie with 2020 each. This is the confusion from the Director of Elections. Okay, yes, Kingston and St. Andrew is tied 2020 each. Jackie Graham. But the rules at play here, Director of Elections, you explained it to us, even in one of these previous interviews. I think it's the one with TVJ. That when there is such a tie, the party that has the popular majority vote takes the municipality. It is the case at the moment where even though both the People's National Party and the Jamaica Labour Party is tied 2020 divisionally, but the People's National Party took the popular vote, which the rule demands they form. The People's National Party become the chair. Colleen Stewart formed the chair of the municipality. So in giving this information, why is the Director of Election still confusing us like this? Why the Director of Election cannot say to us, both parties win 7 parishes each, as well as the People's National Party wins the municipality and most of the division in Portmore. Sharon Powell, good evening and welcome. Is your Director of Elections not confusing you more by this final publication without making a clear declaration as how Jamaicans are used to it, that this party has won the election? This time, at what point we're going to have a resolution and the tiebreaker, or Carla Singh, Mumat Smith, or should we then run over the municipality of Kingston and St. Andrew? Is that something sensible? Because we can't let it so then tie when there's a rule where say, okay, even if them tie, that party which holds the popular vote forms the municipality. So therefore, the People's National Party would win Kingston and St. Andrew. Why can't the director of elections state it like that? Or is it not so? And if it is so then, and there isn't a tiebreaker, should those two seats not run over? Should the Kingston and St. Andrew municipality not rerun? Shouldn't they do a rerun if there is such a confusion, Elder Fletcher? If there is such a confusion with the declaration of Kingston and St. Andrew municipality, or whatever it's called, shouldn't there be a rerun or use the rules, Director of Election, Sharon Robson? Use the rules to declare the election. Let me see if I find back what the liar said in a, I think it was in the TVJ interview, because you have to remember and hold these people to them word, you know. Let me hold on the peeps. I think I'm in the Chanel interview. Hold on there. Let me see if I find Mr. not have much sense here now.
Electoral Office of Jamaica says it continues to do the final tally. Mr. Sebastian was speaking on TV since the local government election.
I don't think it's that one. Spare me, please. I need to find you back what this man said a few days ago. Where is it? It's not the one on Cliff. No, not that. No, not that. Which one is it? Sorry. Hold on. Let me just fast forward this thing to see if I'm mistaken. Hold on. This is not the one. Spare me a second. And if we can talk and work at the same time. But yes, give me a chance and let me try and find this thing for you, because this man, I can't remember in which interview. Director, I think it's this one. Hold on. I think it's in this.
It's made by the PNP's Dennis Meadows and the JLP's ever. It has related to the player code.
Good evening, Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown, there seems to be there are concerns about the way in which the votes were counted this election, the wrong declaration of Clarendon, what seems to be the confusion about who won St. Mary initially first. What went wrong with Clarendon, firstly?
There's no difference in counting this time around as against other elections. I think we need to understand, and the public need to understand, it goes through two processes. On election night, you get what is known as the prayer count. The prayer count is what happens after the close of polling at an individual polling station, where the presiding officer, along with indoor agents, count the ballots and then tally the votes and then pack everything in a ballot box and transport that to the returning officer. And then what the returning officer does at the night of election, they then take all the number, transcribe the number that is on the ballot box, and they end up with what is known as the preliminary count. That was done, and the result was announced on the night, on Monday night, as relates to the preliminary count. Then we embarked on another phase, and this is dictated by the law. The law requires us to do a final count. The final count entails, and I think the public need to understand, that what happens in the final count, and it has never taken place, and there's a narrative going around that it is slow. The final count has never been completed in Jamaica in 24 hours. So the process entails that the returning officer, in the presence of the agents at the counting center on the second day, which was Tuesday, and at times the agent representative is a battery of lawyers. What they do, the returning officer opens the ballot box, then examine every document, most of the document in the ballot box, including the poll books, another thing, the unused ballots, etc., etc. And then they begin, in most cases, the count of the ballot. What it means is that they examine every single ballot that is put in the ballot box. And at times, the time that it takes to count a ballot in that situation, sometimes it takes longer than the norm, because everybody is looking to see whether it is properly marked, if there's an issue. And therefore, sometimes it takes time. And therefore, that process has to be completed. We cannot circumvent that process in order to speed up the count. And therefore, it takes some time. And that's what we're going through.
So then, what happened in Clarendon?
Clarendon, and it happens. In other words, what we remember again, on Monday night, you have a preliminary count. There are times when they begin to do the final count, maybe there was an error in terms of the addition, etc., etc. What happened in Clarendon is that in a particular box, one of the candidates was given the wrong number of votes, and therefore it flips around. So the person who got the highest number in that particular box, the correct thing was that he should have gotten the lower figure, and that changes the mix or the calculation.
And this was in the Annan Town division. So which candidate initially got the wrong number of votes? Like how did it go? On which side?
The PMP candidate got the wrong number.
Which would have declared that candidate the winner
on the preliminary count night.
On the preliminary count, and then it was
switched around. Therefore, in the final count, the correction was made, and then the JLP candidate won that division.
Okay, what happened with St. Mary?
St. Mary, it was the calculation and the addition that took place. Right, that caused, after that count was completed, and you examine what was spoiled, examine what was acceptable by the returning officer. And then remember, the returning officer at the point of counting is a final person in that room that accepts what is a good ballot or what is not a good ballot. So doing those checks and those reconciliation, the numbers change, and that's what happens in the SM area.
And then now we go to way out west in Hanover. Initially we had heard 7-0 to the PNP, then we heard 6-1, and now 7-0 again to the PNP. What happened there?
It happens in a sense that they count, and then we need to remember again, when you go to a final count, you examine every ballot, so the numbers will change and they will fluctuate from time to time within the thing. There's nothing that says, again, as a country, you need to understand, it's a preliminary count that takes place on the Monday, the night of election. And in doing your final checks, or the final check, the numbers can change. The key thing that the numbers change based on what is legitimate ballots. And therefore, that's what happened why you had that fluctuation in Hanover.
Especially given what we're seeing now with the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation, I have to ask you this question. Is it the practice of the Electoral Commission to declare a municipal corporation won by one party because they got the popular vote, even though the number of divisions are tied?
No, we are not declaring that. What we're declaring now, we are declaring the number of electoral division that each political party would have won in the election. In terms of who take control of the municipality, the law is clear. If you read the 7th, the 8th of the Europa, it clearly outlines what happened whenever there's a tie. Whenever there's a tie, the party with the popular vote will automatically takes charge of the mayoral seat in that electoral division.
And just for regular parlance, so the average man can understand, would the Electoral Commission consider that corporation won by the party who has the popular vote?
It's not a matter of the Electoral Commission will consider it. The law clearly defines the process, what happens when there's a tie. And therefore, it's not a matter of accepting or not accepting. The law says whenever there's a tie, the person who takes over the chairmanship of that municipality is a party that has a popular vote, the majority of the popular vote.
The general secretaries of both the JLP and the
Why then in his final publication, because this was said in an interview some days ago, Why then in the Director of Elections final publication, that wasn't made clear to the public that those are the rules, rather than publish on paper, Garfield bad boy. Rather than publish on paper, Country Girl 84. Rather than publish on paper that both are tied, Amoy. Rather than publish to us on paper that Kingston and Senanja municipality is tied, why did the Director of Elections not publish the exact rules for public understanding and public clarity? What the F is the Director of Elections playing at by having us into utter confusion, precious Alex? By having us in utter confusion. So what we are left to do is to read from what the Director of Election has published, that even though the Jamaica Labour Party may have picked up more divisional seats, they were being battered municipality-wise. Because the People's National Party is going to control 7 municipality seats as well, just like them. Because the Kingston and St. Andrew as a combined municipality will be held mayorally by the, David, good afternoon, by the People's National Party. Millie McBean, good evening and welcome. So what we are left to understand then, municipality-wise across the country, they're tied. Divisional seat-wise, the Jamaica Labour Party may have picked up a few more seats. But the popular vote across the country, Cynthia B., the popular vote across the country, the people has rejected a failed Jamaica Labour Party regime. To the point where church bell run out of somebody to hold it and shake it so Nesta cannot speak. The Nesta Morgan, who went around making idle threats of how powerful a person I am in this country. The Nesta Morgan that make it clear that if I don't authorize you to win a seat in this country, you're not going to win it. The Nesta Morgan went in did hungry. The Nesta Morgan, since he start collect kickback money, is telling you that my power in this country, a little further like you, will never be able to get a seat in this country. Because my PR machine, remember, you are the what's it or rather of social media for the Jamaica Labour Party. What I've noticed with all of you throughout this local government election, you all have put the Prime Minister to work, saying you have been there 8 years and you have done nothing but making a mess of our political prospect. So you're going to go around the country, Prime Minister, albeit 2 o'clock in the morning, ringing bell like a rolling calf. You must repair the damage. Tell any amount of lying promises, Carlos Gray. Tell any amount of lying promises that you want to tell. Carlos, the director of election, published Conundrum. And I don't know who it make things clearer for. Certainly not for me. Because what the director of elections is saying, Carlos, we have 14 parish and we have 15 municipalities, is it not? Beat and teach, hold me up here. We have 14 parishes, but because Portmore have its own municipality, so we have, is it 15 municipality beat and teach, or 14 but thingy rather is a combine? Kingston and St. Andrew is a combine. So you would call it 2 in a 1. Make we do the math so. 2 of them give a bad count. Make we bad count over here. Let's say we have 15 municipalities, whatever, you don't know the word. Because Kingston and St. Andrew are 2 in a 1. And Portmore have for them. And you had the St. Catherine municipality. Beat and teach, catch me up here. So is it fair for us to count on 15 municipalities? Catch me up. Make we do the bad count like them. Make we tangle up with self in a number like them. Because you have 14 parishes. And each parish have their municipality, including the combined Kingston and St. Andrew. And Portmore, yes, beat and teach, it's 1, but we can check it as 2. Because Kingston and St. Andrew are 2 different parish. The municipality are 2 different parish, but are 1. So even though them are 1, make we check them as 2. So we're going to end up like 15 and no make no difference beat and teach. Because say, when me and Matt check the money, he end up with a 150% out of 100%. So make we check it so. Make we check it say Kingston and St. Andrew are 2. And then St. Catherine have for them own and Portmore have for him own separate. So Jamaica Labour Party win 7 of the municipalities. With the director of election number, PNP win 5. And then the combination of Kingston and St. Andrew. And they've also taken Portmore. The contention here is the combined municipality of Kingston and St. Andrew, which is said to be tight. We have to say said to be, because mumbo jumbo since Monday night has been in the public waffling to no end to no coherent conclusion, the director of elections. Waffling. The more he speaks is the more confused the nation becomes. Why is it that the director of election did not apply the rules in this declaration where there has been a debacle of confusion since Monday night? The Kingston and St. Andrew municipality here in the director of elections declaration needs further explanation. Explaining here that the Kingston and St. Andrew municipality is tied 20 divisional seats each. The law stipulates further here what are the rules. And in the publication, mumbo jumbo, dada feda, in your declaration, you are under a duty given the outlaw of confusion that has been ensued across the country and the diaspora. To date, every one of us are still confused by the final so-called counting or numbers, results. I wonder if Holy Father can. Holy Father pickpockets, can with his hand in the cookie jar the Archbishop of Jamaica. I wonder if he prayed over this decision to seek divine intervention, or is his hands in the political cookie jar, just a side chat. But the director of election here is under a duty to give clarity to the municipality of Kingston and St. Andrew. It doesn't just stop there by declaring on paper, Director Fodder. It doesn't stop there by declaring on paper. Where you should go further is explaining to a staggered, confused public, Sashaloots. Go further, Director, to explain to a confused, befuddled public with regards to the Kingston and St. Andrew municipality. The law dictates that the information on Mark Golden page would be right. I'll explain that in a bit from my understanding. The law dictates that you give a clarity by explaining, even though the divisional seats are tied, the law dictates that the party with the popular vote in that municipality takes the chair, that therefore the mayoralty of the municipality, therefore director of elections, would making the People's National Party wins the municipality of Kingston and St. Andrew, which would tally up to 6. Boo-boo. Zilch. Nil point. At school. Who mark your papers? Then the People's National Party also took the municipality of Portmore. Thereby, the People's National Party also won 7 municipalities. Was it not that they were joined together? If you were to count like Mayor Mats, one could argue, well, square and fairly, that the People's National Party has won 7 and 8 municipalities. Me counting the combine as 2. But yes, beat and teach, I understand. I'm just being Mayor Mats here. And I'm just arguing from a technical viewpoint. Technically, Kingston and St. Andrew is one parish. Technically, they're 2 different parishes. When it comes to legal technicality, these are the contentions in law. So municipality-wise, it will be a tied election across the country. Popular vote, though, on the numbers, is that the People's National Party won the popular vote across the country, thereby brutally bruising a sitting failed Jamaica Labour Party regime. Thereby, the director of elections is being pushed in public to create confusion in order to save Andrew Holness's credibility. In order to save Andrew Holness's credibility, the director of election, which is an office, the Electoral Commission of Jamaica, an office in the office of the Prime Minister, where if it's in the Prime Minister office, of course, the final reporting is to the Prime Minister, if not to its commercial partner, Cliff Hughes, and them other lot who pay Bros, good evening and welcome, who pay to monopolize and profitize on our election result, one that is never going to be cleared up in public. Tada, Charlie. An election result that is never going to be cleared up in public until next year, September. An election result which will be a major part of the general election campaign, which will get into full swing in no time. But what Andrew is doing here, and this is purely my opinion, in my opinion, Wayne's opinion, what Andrew is doing here is using this staggering, deflecting of the result, one, to throw cold water over the momentum of the People's National Party. One side of it. It is just my loose thinking. It is to throw cold water over the momentum of the People's National Party. Patricia Matthews, good evening. How are you? Sophia, good evening. Sorry. The wholeness in attempt. Have you all seen Nesta Morgan, Delilah Graham? Have anyone seen Nesta Morgan? Nesta Morgan is the Minister of Information, the gaff, the Minister of Gaffery, the Minister of a mouthful of nothing, Minister of blunder, Minister always in front of the camera, sporting narrative minister. Have anyone seen or heard of Nesta Morgan? He's posting, and I think Instagram, but where is Mr. Morgan's face across social media? Where is Mr. Morgan's face across social media? Mr. Morgan has rather gone into silence, but I'm going to go back to the election. But I want to ask Everett Warmington a few questions. Likewise, I also want to ask Dennis Meadows a few questions. But Minister Blunder needs to clear this confusion up in public. We are rather confused by this diminished power, this cast aside, run over by the truck, trampled on by an elephant. Mr. Morgan. Annie Jones, good evening and welcome. Egg on your face, Mr. Morgan. But let me remind you, from a facial, or what you call the pretty face, fixed face, galang point of view, don't keep eggs too long on your face. Kirk Edwards, good evening. Not you, Kirk, Mr. Morgan. Don't keep eggs too long on your face, Mr. Morgan. Wash it off. Longer you keep it on your face, the higher, the more highly likely, Mr. Morgan, that you will end up with your face being cracked up. Can't want a general election, Mr. Morgan, with cracked face. Egg, dry upon your face, and crack it up. So get rid of the facial, Mr. Morgan. Come out from under the towel. Minister of info. He's minister of so many, so many different things. Minister of needing diaper for his mouth. Minister watery mouth. He mouth just a dribble and a drip so. He's minister of many delusions. But the tractor, Nesta Morgan, the elephant, Nesta Morgan, the wildebeest, picked up the lion, wheeled it around pan him hand, drop it a dot of time some sauce him in the air, and then run go juke him a dot with him hand again. Have anyone seen Mr. Morgan?
The persons who you saw in Maypen today are comrades from Woodall, comrades from Moko, and several other places. They could not mobilize enough people from Moko. What it says to you is that the people of Moko do not believe in Romain Morris. Romain Morris has crossed the floor, which is his right. But I will say to you as Member of Parliament, he will never win Moko Division as long as I'm a Member of Parliament, and I put that down.
Wherever you put it down, Mr. Morgan, advise it. You should go and search for it and take it back up. Because put it down there for us to remember that it's there and it's going to happen, said I, thy Lord, Mr. Morgan. I, thy most powerful politician. I, who the narrative crafter. I, who have the lot of paid undercover social media to craft narratives and bring down anyone that challenge me. Are you ready for a challenge, Mr. Morgan? Wash the egg off of your face. Don't make it dry on it. These two faces on the screen were faces from Monday night. Not faces before the election campaign. Not faces during the election campaign. Faces after both parties realizes where the country was going. And it still remained the look on both faces. Even though everyone is hung in Dangleland, it is quite clear that the Jamaica Labour Party was seriously bruised, been trampled all over by a political elephant. The popular vote, if this was a general election, the Wholeness regime would have been booted from power, Wayne Evans, with eggs all over their face, hiding in the dark, like big Chang leader owner for the country. Me know no IP address, and me can pull on it down. Me can find on there, me can create narrative about you, and me can pull on it down. So Uno, under no circumstances, could be a challenge for the powerful machine that I, thy powerful Nestor Morgan, can wield at you using taxpayers' money in the office of the Ministry of Information. Presiding, Nestor Morgan, over misinformation. Where is your Minister of Information, Jamaica? We have not heard or seen the face of your Minister of Misinformation in public, on social media, where he famously resides. Where are the useless JLP vloggers that were audiencing Nestor Morgan for the last few weeks? Can those useless JLP vloggers, those tone deaf to the reality of Jamaica vloggers, those sold their soul to the devil vloggers in order to align themselves to brutality and a tyrannical regime? Can some of these vloggers come out here and explain why these highways and high-rise buildings you all been pushing up in our face for the last few weeks. The highways that the average Jamaicans cannot pay to drive on. The highway which doesn't benefit the economy of Jamaica from its revenue or tax sources. How then did that not cut through to the people? The Prime Minister told you yesterday, and nationwide at 5. The Prime Minister told you, I have gone around the country and I have learned a lot of things. I have identified a lot of things. But within the short time I have left in government, Cliff Hughes, what I will do, I will write a book, commercialize off what I should have done when I was in office. I will now write a book after leaving office, putting into context how leadership, governance, and party political system works. I wonder if the Prime Minister will be able to explain how the democratic system works in his book. If the Prime Minister will be able to explain in his book how he achieved his wealth. If the Prime Minister will be able to achieve in his book why him and his wife block the release of the illicit 6. And will the Prime Minister in his book say if he is one of the illicit 6? If Juliet Holness, Prime Minister Holness, is one of the illicit 6 in your book, will Mr. Holness also tell us also that James Roberts is one of the illicit 6 in his book? Jasmine Clark. So there you are, Jamaica. We already hear who 3 of the illicit 6 are. So now it's for us to go on a further search to find out who the other 3 are before the general election, because they are going to dawdle and fuddle. But has anybody seen who is replaced the hagpen washer, the hagpen scrubber? Does anyone know who replaces it? Or will there be a cabinet shuffle? If there's a cabinet shuffle, hey, Coranchas, if there's a cabinet shuffle, at this time when Andrew is so weak and bruised, it will explain to you, the people, where it is all going to further to. Good evening, Prime Minister Nahavnoon Chent. It is said, Prime Minister, that when you call Everett Warmington, because in your interview with Cliff, you say you spoke to him yesterday and the day before. But let's talk about the day before yesterday. So today is Friday. So let's talk about Wednesday, Prime Minister. What was the line of conversation when you call Warmington with cow tongue, not big like for him? It would be interesting, Prime Minister. I here cannot repeat the words that it was said that you were laddered with, Prime Minister, from Mr. Warmington. My tongue, Prime Minister, no big and long like to Mr. Warmington. All right. The girl, the Warmington, to put it exactly. That careless backroad girl, the Warmington. Mr. Warmington, good evening. The young man from Cayman, the young man, Mr. Warmington, you invited to the lodge. I will get back to you, but Consider Mr. Warmington, if you remember who I'm talking about. The Lodge meeting, all of the Lodge people know about this. Uno Lodge people. Like and share the light, we're going to an onslaught after Warmington. This is not just known by me, Mr. Warmington. It is known widely amongst your Lodge peers. While I will get back to you and the Prime Minister, can you for the moment consider the young man from the Grand Cayman that you invited to the Lodge, your Lodge meeting? But back to Wednesday, Prime Minister, the conversation. No, me not attach screen to him and him. Backroad gal, Warmington. Barefoot gal, Warmington. That's the behavior of it. Back to Wednesday evening conversation, Prime Minister, with Mr. Warmington. My tongue, not big and long and stretched down like Ficoso. But it is said that, Prime Minister, when you called Mr. Warmington on Wednesday evening to have a word with him after Bangarang break loose on social media, and he said, Backroad girl give you the length, Prime Minister, of his tongue. Thereby, an emergency meeting have to be convened, was convened rather, the proper ground. A meeting was convened at Jamaica House with the senior executives of the cabinet and the cabinet and the senior executive of the Jamaica Labour Party to quell the onslaught of Backroad girl tongue on the Prime Minister and tell him, move me if your tara hit, weather hit, muma hit bad. Move me. And it had to be done by consensus. Prime Minister, we were told. It is important, Mavis Gooden, Elder Fletcher. It is important that the Prime Minister gives us clarity to the exact conversation on Wednesday evening and what led to the meeting at Jamaica House that led to the consensus, Sonia Barracks, that led to the consensus of his resignation to save the party going into the election. But does it stop here? Or will the bruise suffered by Andrew Holness start festering Oliver Rodney into bacteria? Will gangrene enter the Jamaica Labour Party? And if gangrene enters the Jamaica Labour Party from the bruise to the Prime Minister, will the party, Brenda, have to remove the big foot to save the body, which is the Jamaica Labour Party? Is there a pending or looming onslaught internally on the Andrew Holness regime in order for those with political ambitions to save their political credibility going forward, especially if they have ambitions in becoming the next leader of the Jamaica Labour Party and by extension, leader of your country? And to Mr. Dennis Meadows, consider while we're at Mr. Warmington's gate, consider your relationship or interaction with any of the choppers or scammers, Mr. Meadows. Just try to recall, Mr. Meadows, any form of relationship, socialization, Mr. Meadows, that you have with the choppers while we stop off a back road gate. Now back to Mr. Warmington and his lodge activities. Back to Mr. Warmington and his lodge activities. It is said, Mr. Warmington, and it was said from lodge members. And let me remind you, Mr. Warmington, that if you are going to sue me, you have to sue the people them in the lodge first. Because me get it from somewhere. But the young man, Mr. Warmington, the young man that you invited to the lodge meeting from the Grand Cayman, the young man, Mr. Warmington, that you rape brutally, yes, rape brutally, Mr. Warmington. How much money did you, Mr. Everett Warmington, pay to that young man and his family to cover the story, Mr. Warmington? And what I'm daring you and members of your lodge is to come and sue me and tell me, say, it no go so. And then, Mr. Warmington, all hell will break loose. All hell, Mr. Warmington, will break loose. And I know when me say, me have evidence, me don't bluff. You know, Mr. Warmington, when me say, me have evidence, Mr. Warmington, me don't bluff. So, blessed one, while you're at it, Mr. Warmington, while you're at it, the young man from Grand Cayman, the young man from Grand Cayman, Mr. Warmington, that you invited to the lodge meeting, that you, Everett Warmington, raped, that you, Everett Warmington, paid him and his family to kill the story. My question, Mr. Warmington, is how much money did you pay to that young man and his family? Good evening, Mr. Dennis Meadows. We are aware from the Integrity Commission report of 2022. We are aware from that report, Mr. Meadows, that you have a very questionable character, Andre Raymond. Mavis good, yes. That you have a very questionable integrity. Your integrity. Shane Thorpe. You have a questionable integrity, Mr. Meadows. You stood down from the board of FLA after the director of public corruption, if I saw the title go, referred you for determination of for prosecution for violating, for breaching public office. The Breach of Trust and Prevention Act, something like I saw it name. But that happened in 2002. And you stood down from the board. There was also the debacle in public over which of you, whether it be you, Mr. Meadows, or Shane Darling, that issued over 200 gun licenses to questionable characters. Some people, Mr. Meadows, with criminal conviction. One, Mr. Meadows, was nepotistically done by you to your brother-in-law. We heard you on in the election campaign telling scammers, lottery scammers, choppers, Mr. Meadows, go out there and chop. Get back what the slave master took from us. Chop it away, James. Chop away and make yourself economically well. One doesn't bother about one's freedom of speech. But was that the right platform? And is that the right advice coming from your political representative? One that hopes to get into your legislature, one that could possibly become the Minister of National Security. Who, Mr. Meadows, is your financial backer? You took home all your councillor, all the divisional seats. You took home all the divisional seats in the constituency you were caretaking, Mr. Meadows. I wonder why. Did you pay for any votes, Mr. Meadows? Who is Mr. Meadows' financial backers? Is there any truth to the argument, Mr. Meadows, that you are very closely linked and tied to the lottery scamming of Western Jamaica, Brittany Line, and thereby Mr. Meadows was able to use a lot of those lottery scamming money to sweep the entire constituency you caretake? Question, Mr. Meadows. Do you have close relations with lottery scammers, Mr. Meadows? It's quite a relevant question to ask based on your public utterance. It is quite fair, Mr. Meadows, and relevant for us to ask that question. Who is Mr. Meadows' financial backers? And will Dennis Meadows, with his strong financial backing of lottery scammers, will Dennis Meadows be contesting as an independent the constituency he was caretaking? Do you have such consideration, Mr. Meadows? Because it would be advisable to be aware of social media onslaught and public truth, Mr. Meadows, should you decide to run as an independent with a broad financial shoulder, Mr. Meadows, albeit financed by illegal means, financed by the lottery scamming that you, Mr. Dennis Meadows, we heard on the election campaign. Be aware of those of us who hold information, Mr. Meadows. I knew from very first you wasn't safe in the Mount Golden camp. I made it clear from last year, Mr. Meadows. But be aware, Mr. Meadows, if you're going up as an independent, be aware to face not only the country, Dennis Meadows, but to face the sounds of a growing social media audience across the globe, in Jamaica and in the Jamaican diaspora. So the two questions for Hog Green and Hog Orange. How much did you, Mr. Warmington, pay the young man and his family from Grand Cayman that you raped at your lodge? And to Mr. Dennis Meadows, who are your financial backers? And are you, Mr. Meadows, being funded by lottery scammers? This was your Drive Time London. Thank you for being here with us this evening. We really appreciate having your presence always with us on Global TV. And tell Mr. Meadows and Mr. Warmington that I'm not afraid of them. They can sue me. They can send their bad man, gunman, and all sorts after me. I'm just afraid of you. And you have to call people for party, you and him. But it's the truth, Mr. Warmington. Only the truth will part me and you from here. Only the truth, Mr. Warmington. And to Dennis Meadows, feel free to contest next September. You have a wealth, Mr. Meadows, of financial backup. What is stopping you? Thank you very much for being here with us this evening. We hope to join you back for our last program for the week at the People's Point of View this evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 p.m. on Greenwich Mean Time. Thank you all very much, and see you right back here at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Good evening from Global Television.